Apple has come out with a new report. Actually, it wasn't Apple itself. It was a auditor firm that came out with a new report about the working conditions in China. And here to talk about that is Andrew Dowell. How are you?
Good to be here. Thanks.
So we learned that there are some difficult working conditions, to say the least, going on there. 60-hour work weeks, other health and safety violations. What are they reporting, and what is the impact that we expect from this report?
Well, it's like you said. There's, they studied Apple working conditions at Foxconn, which is this major manufacturer for Apple, as well as a bunch of other technology companies, for 3 weeks, and they found that workers are regularly working more than the 40-hour work week and putting in a lot more overtime than I think the 36 hours a month that's allowed. So you have this high-profile situation where the companies agreed to correct this and take steps. It's going to mean hiring new workers. It's going to mean boosting compensation to make up for that overtime, because obviously people are working those hours to try and make money. And it creates a high-profile sort of reform that's going to pressure a lot of the rest of Chinese manufacturing to follow suit, and certainly other American companies that manufacture in China to push their suppliers to follow suit.
Now, Apple has taken an awful lot of flack for this in the last few weeks. Some of it deserved, some of it perhaps arguably not. How is Apple behaving towards this report? I mean, it seems that they're kind of owning up to it, and they want to try and get control of this.
Yeah, they seem to be right. They're supporting the changes. They've agreed to make these changes. It's going to presumably some of this is going to come out of Apple's margin. It was up a lot in the last quarter, 44% or something, 45% gross margin. So they do have some cushion there where they could, pay more in supplies. But even, the new CEO Tim Cook, his specialty was the supply chain and kind of getting it right and getting it affordable, or at least cheap, to allow enough Apple margin was largely his doing. So now he's going back through and kind of, I guess, correcting some of the excesses, of that approach.
Maybe he negotiated a little too tough with Foxconn and some of his component suppliers. Perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue you don't want to be a supplier to Apple, right? I mean, it's made Foxconn. They're huge in electronics. They're, and they're hugely skilled at producing these products. It's obviously worked for everyone, on the company side and the consumer side. What's been left out of the equation has been the workers.
And what might be the impact that we see here at the consumer? I mean, as you said, Apple may cover some of these costs because it's got $100 billion and certainly has the money to do that. But could we also see some of this passed on to the consumer here as they look to buy their iPads and iPhones?
I mean, it remains to be seen. Like, another industry that we cover is apparel, and they've been through this too. The wages went up in China, so they moved to other locations in Asia. Those wages are now going up as well. But the apparel industry is very competitive, and the consumer is stretched, and the ability to raise prices is iffy. So you don't, companies are sort of caught. Apple obviously has a good deal of pricing power. At the same time, their strategy more recently has been to, at least say with the iPad, keep the price as low as possible to make it hard for anyone else to get into the market. So there's tension there, and it will be interesting to see how it shakes out. But it seems pretty likely that this will spread in China. There's pressure on the leadership to share more of the country's, big rewards with the workers, and there's a desire, in economic terms anyway, to create more of a consumer-driven economy as opposed to one that's so dependent on exports. And so this fits well with those priorities.
And given, as you said, Apple's sort of the poster child for this, but certainly not the only company affected this. The other U.S. companies that do business there will likely follow.
Dell and HP are all customers of Foxconn, pretty much anybody.
Right, well, and this is a good point. Like, so what does it mean for those? I mean, you guys probably know better than I do because you cover those companies, but, what does it mean for those companies that don't enjoy Apple's huge margins and ability to sort of command whatever they want from the consumer?
Mm-hmm. It becomes tension. One thing that I always find, and people are surprised about this, is that the problem with these overtime hours is that the workers actually want to work as much overtime as they get, and so they actively and aggressively try to bypass some of the checks that prevent them from overworking.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's true. I mean, look, you've got people who are trying to make a living, and this is one important way to make a living. And so that means there's going to have to be, if the company's going to scale back their hours, they can't just impoverish the workers. There has to be, some make-up salary. But yes, there will be some tension there in those. But Foxconn also had this rash of suicides and other sort of, it was pretty clear that there was a high level of dissatisfaction too, even as workers, for economic reasons, were pushing themselves to work all these extra hours. There was also a lot of stress that came along with that. That had deleterious effects, obviously.
Right. And what is Apple stock doing since then?
Oh, since
Since
they
this came out yesterday.
Oh, since I don't know, what is it? Is it down a little bit today? Is it up?
Yeah, I didn't look.
I haven't either. I don't think it's moved
down
a lot.
little bit.
Down
Yeah.
1%.
Down 1% today.
So this is not an Apple stock moving event. It's more, But the thing is, they're a consumer brand, and their brand is based on like being, sort of fun and approachable and friendly and not evil. So the idea that all of this is built on the backs of oppressed workers in China is not good for them.
It's
And
raising the risk of hurting the brand.
Right. But there's still more to come on this issue. Thank you, Andrew, for coming in and talking
Definitely
about it.
glad to be here.